in that it's like the millennial generation is known as like generation identity or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not surprised because they grew up filling in forms that are like, are you male or female? What's your profession? What's your name? What's this? This is, and they're the first ones that had to like consciously like
think about who they are. Yeah,
and then like back it up with all their posts and things like that. It's like,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Renaissance Podcast. I'm here today with a local photographer, a good friend of mine, an overall bad motherfucker, Joe Westley. How's it going, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Azim?
I'm doing good, man. I feel refreshed. Lockdown is practically over.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Slowly getting there. I said there's a lockdown 4 after. But Joe Westley.
How are you doing?
I'm just...
Congratulations. Episode number 10.
Oh, yeah, episode number...
Double digits.
It only took a whole fucking year.
From one podcaster to another. Congratulations for reaching the big number.
Mate, I feel like I'm part of the squad now.
Yeah, you're in it.
Even though it took a very long time.
Well,
we got there in the end, you know.
You have the excuse because you have a very good setup. There's a lot of technical stuff going on behind the scenes. As everyone else's are just kind of...
record and do your thing.
Yeah, they're just kind of shit out on the spot. You know?
Yeah.
This one is craft involved.
Exactly. We want to make sure there's a load of care put into every single episode. So today, Joe Wesley, you know what we're going to talk about, man? Creativity and depression. Is there a link?
I don't know. Is that the first question? I mean, is there a link?
Because a lot of people say, if you're depressed, you make better art. Is that the case?
I don't know. I think it gets linked a lot because there's obviously the big names like... So Van Gogh is probably the main guy when it comes to depression and art, and there's loads of others that it's just like... But sometimes I do wonder whether it's like... Not faked as such, but sort of added on after the fact for curator or gallery telling a story, TV purposes, you know what I mean, to sort of thing. But I'm not really sure, man. It's hard for me to say because I don't really know. Because I'd like to think that like what I make is good, but it's like not necessarily fueled by depression. And I'm hesitant to say as well because it's also could be a thing where it's like, well, if you're not depressed, then you make shit art. And I think that's equally as dangerous as conflating the two, although they do seem to get put together a lot. I'm not sure. I think, do you know what I think it might be? I think creatives are pretty sort of, to an extent, like, well, definitely rebellious, but also sort of reckless in a sense. And I think it kind of, maybe when you're in sort of, it's just like, depression's a different state of mind, right? To a certain extent, then it's, I guess you're more willing just to sort of go, I don't care if it all goes wrong, right? I guess you're more willing just to sort of
take the risk.
Yeah,
basically.
Maybe that's where it comes from as such, but I find it hard to say they're strictly tied together and, and that they're, rambling.
It's interesting, but because like, people say, if I get depressed, if I do these drugs and whatnot, I'll become more, creative. But it's obviously like it's 50-50 in a way because obviously you get new experiences, so more ways of being creative. But then there's the other side of it where it's like, okay, you're on these drugs, you're depressed, you don't want to be in that state of mind forever because you have to enjoy life sometimes. Now, when it comes to your work though, because you're a photographer based in Northampton, so...
I'd like to think so.
Wait, we're from Northampton, right? But do you ever, when you put out your work, when you release something, do you get a sense of fear, like people may not like it or people may criticize it or bash it?
I think it's different from you as a filmmaker because obviously for a film it takes a lot longer to get
completed
the final project. As with photography, I can, look, I figured out.
Take a picture of me now.
I haven't minded that one. Yeah, I'll get one. Yeah, you press the button and that's a piece done,
Yeah.
And then I guess the equivalent for me in photography is like the zines I do, where it's more a series of photos and it's like each photo is like a scene as it will be in a film, But I don't really get worried. I mean, I do know some other things that I do though, where I do get like sometimes frustrated, like skateboarding, sometimes it's a bitch and it doesn't want to give you the trick and you do get like pissed off. But with photography, it's like I got kind of lucky because I don't get that frustrated. I perhaps did nearer when I was starting off, but now I'm sort of, 7 years in, I'm sort of much more comfortable. And I also realize how young I am as well. I'm 21, so if it's good now, there's probably,
Be even better as time goes by.
Hopefully. And if it's shit now, it's like, well, it's supposed to be shit now. You know what I mean? So it's like, as long as it's always, I'm finding something new, or, as long as I'm not getting bored. But I think the thing with photography that makes it different, though, is it's the people who are photographers are the people who basically are creative people who couldn't draw, right? Because drawing really frustrates me.
That's a very interesting theory, actually, now that I think about it.
It's like, I just took a picture of you, and that's a face with the background, the lights, and everything, and I barely had to do a thing.
Just
drawing,
you have to
oh my god,
sketch it out.
Yeah,
it takes weeks. Yeah,
it's just like, Jesus Christ, you have to put the effort in, and it's like one thing goes wrong, and then you're like, fuck it,
start all over again.
So it's like, maybe it's a less stressful thing.
So what about, because you obviously release a load of work, what is the purpose of your work? What do you want to achieve with it?
Jesus, it's a heavy question. It's so broad, because it's like, I do like, probably the main focus, if you were to look at me and my work for the first time, it would be about, the people of Northampton at the moment, and all the cool other creatives, whether they're visual artists or podcasters or
shout out to podcasters. Podcasters.
Yeah, but I do a lot with like the musicians and the music scene and things like that, and there's just so many cool people and places and stuff, and I just want to, like, probably the main tying in factor is the town things, but like I'm also interested in exploring like sort of like more tech stuff, so there's like, there is a side to my work that goes into that, like more recently as well, because we've been in a pandemic and we've kind of been hyper consumed by technology. So I delve into that. I think for me, it's like if I had to separate it from any themes and forget I was even showing the work to anyone or anything, of cut that side out, because all that purpose that I've just given you is just me saying like what I'm trying to show people. But when it comes to why I'm doing it, it's just purely like, how can I keep pushing it further every time? So it's like, you take a picture and you go, this is good, this is bad, this is interesting. Maybe that's why I like film as well, because sometimes things happen accidentally and you go,
well, that's like, actually all right,
Yeah, and you go, oh, that's cool. And then you have to think like, oh, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Because like sometimes I'll take and then you have to figure out like, okay, it was a mistake that time, but how can I make it a purposeful thing? Like for me, it's sometimes like I finally did it purposefully, like found a purposeful use for her, like taking a portrait of someone but having them slightly blurred, and that was and not like motion blurred, like they were just out of focus. And for that portrait, it like, I was like, okay, it did work. After like, obviously I've taken out of focus pictures before, but it's always been a bit like, I should have been in focus.
Yeah.
But this one I was like, no, I don't want it for the purpose of the shot. I don't want it to be in focus because of what this shot represents, And I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's a new technique that I've now can use if I so choose to keep using it. And it's like, you constantly just, through curiosity, find new things. It's just to fuel my own curiosity, because when I was a kid I was bored already.
Bored already?
Yeah, but as a kid you watch cartoons and stuff and you're like, wow, in this cartoon world there's dragons and sky pirates
and robots and shit.
And there's loads of cool stuff, and then you go to the school playground and you're like,
yeah, that's not what I expected. This is boring as shit. Yeah. So obviously we've been in a pandemic. We still are in a pandemic. And would you take a photographs of people and just general architecture and whatnot? You're very tight to the community, local community. So with the pandemic obviously being self-isolate from people, and your work being get together, capturing someone, or take photos. How did you cope with the pandemic? Because obviously your work is, you're tight to the community, but with the pandemic, you're isolated from the community. How did you handle that?
It's quite interesting you say tied to the community, because I see it more as like tied to the town. As
what would you say the difference is?
Well, the community is made up by like the people and things, right?
Yeah.
So, which is part of my work. Like there is loads of shots of people, and people like shots of people, and like portraits and things like that. And I do a lot of that. And like the podcast is obviously with people, but the town is, there's a certain, wherever you go, there's a certain sort of, just like with, like you say, architecture, the buildings, the rubbish left behind, just the way the actual spaces, and that sort of also links into how the people turn out, because it can have a strong effect. That's why, backgrounds are important in movies and stuff, because it feeds in, it's a character within itself. So at the start of the pandemic, I was going out and going back to like basically the type of photography I was still always doing, but it was the stuff that I started doing, which I consider my street photography, which tends to not involve that many people, that I was doing before I got confident enough to start shooting people. Because it's like, as a photographer, it's like, okay, I have a camera, but I don't really want to go up to someone and be like, can I take a picture of you? Yeah, you know what I mean? So I kind of sort of brought that side of my work a bit more concentrated, but then that kind of got boring, if you know what I mean, for lack of a better word, because, I was trying to strictly find stuff related to the pandemic, and there was a lot, but it just became I think it wasn't good to be like going out of your way to remind yourself of this thing you were kind of trying to avoid.
Yeah.
So I think, and then as it evolved, I was really interested in sort of the, like you say, the people side of things, which is like, people are all on the internet now, it's like you're on Zoom, that's the way you communicate to people. So I became super fascinated with the Zoom interactions, and also VR. Weirdly, I've been doing VR photography, which I haven't put out anywhere really, because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm thinking about the stuff that's going on, and what I learn is really interesting, but I'm like, if I upload these pictures, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. No one actually. It's like the difference with photography. It's kind of weird because it's so ubiquitous. It's just like, it's like maybe a photo you take to put on eBay. It's like no one really gives a crap beyond utilitarian use, or even still, it's like a photo, say, of my grandmother is like really cool to me, but to anyone else, it's just a picture.
Yeah. So I want to sentimental to you. Yeah. To others,
so it's grandma.
Like, yeah.
So I've kind of got this weird thing though, where it's like a photographer's view on photography that's only interesting to the photographer, rather than it just be a photograph that's interesting to a person. There's stuff I'm doing where I'm like, I'm walking around in a virtual space taking pictures of people in virtual bodies, and it's like, it feels like I'm just out taking photos. It's like really weird, but it's just like, and obviously that I'm seeing it in terms of like, this tech is going to get better. This tech is going to become more
realistic in a way where you're kind of,
and in the way that like more people are going to be using it in the same way of like how Instagram grew. It's like at the start it's like a few people had it, and then people got it and they were thinking like, oh, it's like a fun time, and now it's like Instagram can make or break a person at this point, depending on how, it becomes like a second identity, and people, and even an identity that overtakes you as a real person to a certain extent, and it's kind of scary.
And with like the whole idea with identity, do you feel like you have to adapt? Like, do you ever change yourself for different social groups? Because obviously when you meet a stranger, you're not just full on Joe Westley, like full on Joe Westley mode, But when you meet, a peer of yours in class, you're more yourself. Like, would you say you adapt yourself to different environments?
You do change yourself in different environments, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's changing yourself. Or
would you say like hiding parts of yourself?
I wouldn't even say hiding. It's one of those things where it's just like, it's like you're a different person around your friends than you are in front of your grandma.
Yeah.
But you're still, in both situations, you're still you. So I kind of see, I think the idea of it being like you're repressing yourself or hiding what you're really like is sort of it's a symptom of the online identity that everyone has now, where it's like, this is the true me, and then you can't express that necessarily, because some identity in online spaces is very abstract.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's no surprise to me that things like, like the trans community has become much more well known, and much more sort of, just much more visible and things through social media, because in that, it's like the millennial generation is known as like generation identity or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not surprised, because they grew up filling in forms that are like, are you male or female? What's your profession? What's your name? What's this? This is, and they're the first ones that had to like consciously like
think about who they are.
Yeah, and then like back it up with all their posts and things like that. It's like, and it just gets more and more extreme. And I think that's where it kind of becomes slight of an issue, because it can, as much as like when you go in, it gives you the freedom to be like, oh, I can it's sort of like you can experiment with different things online. It's like you can go in, and there's also like the anonymous sort of thing as well. So it's like there's some people who have 2 accounts and they're very different on both accounts. You know what I mean? But then after it sort of ripped you out, isolated you, let you do your thing, it kind of then locks you back into, and it becomes just as real as like your real life one, and then they sort of become at odds with each other. So I don't know. My advice: stay away from it.
Stay away from it. Man.
But no, I mean it's you can do good things with it as well. But it's a weird world. It's fun. I say fun. It's fun for me to look and see and explore these sort of things, looking forward and things. And this is. Yeah, I don't know whether that made any sense. I'm just rambling here.
Have you because during the pandemic, we often feel like isolated and distant. A lot of people felt isolated and distant from their families and their friends. Have you felt isolated and distant from people? Like, did you feel like you went through not a rough phase, but not as great of a time compared to something like this right now?
Well, I feel like that goes for everyone, right? If there's someone who's out there right now being like, no, I was just always around everyone who I usually was, then I'm like, either you don't have any friends at all, or you've been doing some very illegal shit. So like, I feel like I wouldn't. It's a weird thing though, because it kind of, for probably the first half, you're constantly going like, oh man, I wish I was out with my friends. I wish we were at the Gary. I wish we were whatever, doing stuff like this. I wish I was, around people. And then slowly but surely, you get to this point where you go, man, it's way better when I can just wake up when I want. I don't have to walk somewhere. I can just get on with whatever I want to do for the day. And then when I want to stop working.
No uni bullshit back then. Yeah.
If my uni lecture's boring, my internet stopped working. Sorry. It's just like, if like on the flip side, if luckily we have good lecturers here, but say the lecturer's giving a really shite lecture, you can just be like, I'll just go watch a YouTube video that's about the same thing but better.
Have you ever been through any mental health struggles, like ever in your life?
Not really. I mean,
or has anyone close to you been through it?
I mean, I've had not so much family. I've had friends in the past, but it's a hard one to say though, because like all that stuff sort of happened like with the people I knew, not like teenage years.
Yeah.
So that's a very different. What would be the word? I was going to say physiological, but that doesn't seem right.
Physiological.
Like teenagers.
I have no idea what that means.
Teenagers have a lot of different things going on in like internally as well as externally. You're still we're still developing. We've got
brain doesn't develop to what, the age of 25
or something? Yeah. So I'm assuming we said the same number, which means we both know it. Yeah. So yeah, it's that thing where it's like it's hard when. Like, with people that age, it's hard to say they're, like, had... Like, and there's people that definitely do have, like, mental health things, but sometimes it's hard to say, like, this person did, this person didn't really. What's like, a thing that's gonna follow them into later years, if you know what I mean? Because there are some that continue going on. What's, like, due to sort of just the shitstorm that's going on inside their body at that time, It's tricky to say. I'd like through uni, I've not really like known anyone to have like massive issues. Really, like there's been people who have like problems and stuff, but they're like, but I was going to say we've been lucky, but that's not the right word.
We've been in with a pandemic.
No, but I mean like in terms of like the people I know all seem like at the moment at least happy. Like they're all doing shit, and I feel like. If there was something wrong, they'd say like, hey man, what's like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a good point, and I'm very happy to be happy at the moment.
So to top it all off, Mr. Westley, how would you? To those, there are probably creators watching this podcast right now or listening, if you're a Spotify listener. What advice would you give to those who are creatively struggling to top it all off?
If you're right, figure out what you're struggling with. Right, first off.
What if they say everything?
Well, if they say everything, oh my god, it's just like you're a really interesting position where it's like you're at the center and you can go off in any direction you want to. You know what I mean? It's interesting. It's like you can go anywhere and you can kind of try out all these different things. So just keep trying everything, copy shit, make your own shit. Just like, just do stuff.
Yeah.
And then from when you just go shoot, say, a roll of film or 100 photographs, and then look at all of them and go like, that looks cool, that doesn't look cool, whatever. Does this look cool? I don't know. Ask around, go look at other people's photos. I'm going to talk about photos because I'm a photographer, but I assume this applies to basically film, any art form, whatever you're doing, and just kind of, and then just play. That's all it is. And then hopefully your work will, not hopefully, it will, eventually you'll get to a level where it's like, my work's good enough that other people will think it was kind of cool, and they'll be like, hey, can you come shoot this for me? Can you come shoot this for me? And regardless of what it is, just go get stuck in and do it, even if it's something you're a bit that's like, oh, I don't really know, because you're gonna, even if it's not directly linked to what you normally do, you're gonna find something to link it back to what you normally do, and that sort of gives you an edge over people who just stay in one lane all the time. It's like,
just keep going. Do more shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Very good advice, Mr. Westley. So, Joe Westley, do you want to plug anything in? Social media?
Well, if you people enjoy podcasts.
What is your podcast? Round Town?
Round Town with double N at the end.
Double N, Northampton, that's
Northampton,
why. Yeah.
Exploring all the cool people in the town.
And I am in episode 5?
I believe it's 3.
3, yeah.
You were on there pretty quick. But, so go check that out. They're probably not going to be new episodes for, a little while until this pandemic thing flows over and I can have people sit down with me safely. But I do have another podcast, which I do with my buddy Felix, who's also in a few Round Town episodes, and we just, watch a film every week and then we talk about it, so...
Sick. What about Instagram or social media? You want to plug that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have an Instagram. It's Joe Wesley Photo.
Yeah, it'll be, if you're watching on IGTV, it'll be added in the caption.
Yeah, if you want to see a bunch of my work. And then, if you're really, really interested in my work, I do have a zine, so DM me if you want a copy. I've got a few left over if anyone's out there. It comes with a free sticker. It's a good deal.
Mad.
$5. But, is there anything else? I think I'm not sure when this is coming out. But if it's
next month. Well, it'll be coming out in May.
Well, if Azim's good on the editing, I'll have a solo exhibition online now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, even if the exhibition's finished, there'll probably be shit you can go look at online or on the thing that I've been working on these past couple of weeks. But that's about it.
Sick. Well, Mr. Wesley, Joe Wesley, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Very fun.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me on.
No worries, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the episode of the Renaissance Podcast. Of course, if you're a Spotify listener, I got a YouTube channel, so please, watch the face-to-face interaction. You don't want to see the body language over here. And if you're already watching and you want to commute, then be sure to, check out the Spotify as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys until next one. Peace.
Nice.
Sick. Gotta be a smooth motherfucker. Go on.